Dust devils spun across the prairie as the noon sun baked the tiny settlement of Red Mesa. From the stagecoach window, Clara Whitmore pressed her gloved hands together so tightly that the knuckles whitened. Every jolt of the rutted road rattled through her spine, but the ache in her chest hurt far worse. She had left everything behind in Charleston. Family name, society tease, and the quiet shame of a doctor's whispered verdict. Barren. Useless. A woman whose womb would never quicken with life. When her father arranged a solution, she thought it a cruel jest. A husband out west will overlook such defects, he'd said, his gaze cold as ledger ink. Clara knew the truth. He wanted her gone. Her disgrace shipped to a place where gossip could not follow. The coach lurched to a stop before a weathered station house. Heat shimmered off the packed earth. Clara stepped down. Her cream traveling dress dulled with road dust, and lifted her chin despite the weight of curious eyes from the townsfolk. She could almost hear their thoughts. Another Eastern doll come to find a husband. But something must be wrong with her. A tall figure waited by the hitching post, a man cut from raw frontier. Broad shoulders beneath a sun-bleached duster, dark hair brushing his collar. A revolver worn like a second skin. His hat shadowed his eyes, but Clara felt the force of his gaze the moment it found hers. This was Colt Maddox, the rancher her father had chosen, no bought to take her. The arrangement was plain. She would cook, keep house, and give the appearance of a proper wife. Children were not expected, and yet the very thought clawed at her heart. "Miss Whitmore?" His voice was low, steady, with a rasp that hinted at midnight trails and long silences. Yes, she managed. He tipped his hat. "I'm Colt. Welcome to Red Mesa." For a heartbeat, they simply regarded each other. Colt's face bore the hard lines of a man who'd faced droughts and cattle thieves. But his eyes, gray like a storm waiting to break, held something unexpected. Curiosity, not judgment. The ride to his ranch stretched across miles of endless sage and crimson mesas. Colt guided his bay gelding with an easy hand, the stagecoach driver trailing behind with her trunk. Conversation came in small pieces like stepping stones across a wide river. He asked if she could ride, if she minded the isolation, if she'd ever seen a prairie sunset. She answered politely, guarded, unwilling to reveal the ache that followed every mention of children or family. By late afternoon, the ranch house appeared, a sturdy log dwelling tucked against a rise of red rock. Chickens scattered as they rode in, and a pair of blue heelers barked greetings. Clara inhaled the scent of pine smoke and leather, a fragrance strangely comforting. Inside, the home was simple but warm, hand-hewn beams, a stone hearth, shelves lined with well-worn books. "You'll have the front room," Colt said, setting her trunk inside. "Plenty of light in the morning." Clara traced a finger along the windowsill, feeling the grain of wood, the quiet strength of a place built by calloused hands. "It's beautiful," she said, surprised at the honesty in her voice. That evening, Colt cooked a supper of venison stew and skillet cornbread. They ate by lamplight, the silence companionable. Clara stole glances at him, the way he bowed his head briefly before the meal, the gentleness with which he set a plate before her. This was no crude arrangement. This was a man of quiet depth. After dishes were washed, Colt leaned against the hearth. "I know why you're here," he said at last, eyes steady. "I don't care what your folks told you or what you think you owe me. I didn't agree to this for land or money. I need a partner, someone strong enough to stand beside me. That's all." The words caught her off guard. No demand for children, no thinly veiled pity. Just respect. A warmth flickered in her chest, fragile as the flame in the lamp. Outside, the desert night unfolded, stars blazing across an indigo sky. Clara stepped onto the porch, the cool air brushing her cheeks. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote called, its cry lonely yet proud. She felt the old shame loosening, thread by thread, replaced by a cautious hope she barely recognized. Morning came with a sky streaked in rose and gold, and Clara woke to the scent of strong coffee and the low murmur of cattle beyond the window. She dressed quickly, the borrowed calico dress soft from many washings, and stepped into a kitchen filled with warm light. Colt stood by the stove, sleeves rolled high, a coffee pot steaming in his hand. He offered her a mug without a word, and when their fingers brushed, she felt an unexpected current, steady, grounding, as if the land itself recognized her presence. The day's rhythm unfolded like a slow heartbeat, feeding chickens, checking fences, learning the names of the horses that tossed their manes in greeting. Each chore drew Clara deeper into a life she'd never imagined, a life of motion and quiet purpose. She discovered she liked the scrape of a broom across a wooden floor, the smell of sun-warmed hay, the brief smiles Colt gave when she mastered a small task. By late afternoon, they rode side by side along the south pasture, a soft wind carrying the fragrance of sage. Colt pointed toward distant thunderheads building on the horizon. "Storm's coming. Could be trouble if lightning strikes dry. Brush." His tone held more than weather's warning. It carried the weight of someone who'd fought the elements and understood how quickly beauty could turn to danger. That night, Clara lay awake listening to the first rumble of distant thunder, the roof creaking under sudden gusts. She thought of Charleston parlors, where storms were only background, to polite conversation. Here the sky ruled everything, and fear mixed with a fierce exhilaration. When a sharp crack split the darkness, she leapt to her feet and found Colt already at the door, lantern in hand. "Fire in the West Canyon," he said. "We have to move the herd." Without hesitation, she followed him into the wild night. Rain lashed her face as they saddled the horses, but the lightning that should have brought relief instead revealed a smear of orange across the far ridge. They rode hard, hooves pounding the soaked earth, until the acrid scent of smoke thickened the air. The herd bellowed in confusion, eyes rolling white. Colt barked calm orders, his voice carrying through wind and rain, and Clara marveled at the quiet authority that steadied both animals and her own racing heart. She found herself guiding stragglers with surprising skill, every instinct alive and focused. Hours blurred in a whirl of smoke, thunder, and sheer determination. When dawn finally bled across the sky, the fire was contained to a blackened swath of hillside, the cattle safe in a sheltered draw. Exhausted, Clara slid from the saddle, legs trembling, and looked at Colt. Soot streaked his face. Rain plastered his hair, and yet when he smiled, a rare, sudden flash, something inside her broke open. "You did good," he said simply, and the words settled over her like a benediction. Back at the house, they shed wet clothes and wrapped in blankets before the fire. Silence stretched between them, intimate as a heartbeat. Clara felt the weight of all she'd been told about her worth, the cold judgments of society, and knew they meant nothing here. Colt reached for her hand, rough palm warm against her chilled fingers. "You're stronger than most men I know," he murmured. "Don't let anyone tell you different." She met his gaze, and in that moment the unspoken truth passed between them. Love not born of duty or expectation, but of shared trials and the fierce respect of equals. For the first time, Clara believed she belonged, not as a wife bought to bear heirs, but as a woman fully seen,